Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to item number 5, recognition of involved citizens by City Council. I feel like I got super loud all of a sudden. Your turn. I promise you I'd wait. Maybe the microphones don't like you coming up. You can just,
I have
Oh,
like a
okay.
thing. So it's
and just so you know, before we get
scale about 98% guaranteed.
And just so you know, before we get started, we won't make any decisions or anything
Right.
based on this. We'll just hear you out and see what to do from there.
Right.
And you've got 5 minutes, and you can go whenever Chris gets your overhead taken care of there.
All right. Hello, Mr. Mayor and council members. I am Cassie Barta, residing at 505 Somerville in Shakopee. I'm here to ask the council for an immediate consideration to split my lots. I have a double frontage lot, so the main home dwelling would still be on a large legal code lot. But I am a glass blower, and I can't get insured on a home dwelling with my glass equipment, with the gas and the propane and the torches. But if I split my lot and turn the garage into a studio, I can get a different insurance policy through a different insurance company separate. So as you can see, it would be like a long-term dwelling. That's where I want to stay. And it's not necessarily a business at all whatsoever. It's just like my hobbies and getting into ceramics and kilns and kind of opening up with the community too. Like I had heard rumors about a community kiln and then community education stuff. I've been looking into that and getting more involved. I guess that's all I have to say.
So if I understand correctly, you're wanting to take one lot and split it into the garage and the other lot as the house, so you are able to get insurance for your house? Is that what I'm understanding?
I have homeowner's insurance. I cannot work with my glass, torches, in my studio at all. After I talked to my insurance guy for home insurance, he won't even insure my home if I do it in my garage. It has to be on a separate non-home dwelling.
Got it. And you have spoken to staff about this? City staff?
I talked to, well, that's why they told me to come here instead of paying the fee and then being rejected. So, I'm gonna
Got
be able to speak.
Okay. Mr. Lehman, Councilor Lehman.
Mayor, couple of questions, probably for staff, but would a home occupation permit on the property specific to the garage, I take it the work is done out of the garage location? Or is
I
it done
can't
in
do
the house?
any work right now.
Okay, but your plan is to work out of the house or the garage?
Well, I'd have to do some work to the garage to fireproof it and make it fire code. But it's really more of a hobby right now. It's nothing that I'm making any money off of because it's an expensive hobby.
Okay.
And right now I am waiting to get on disability, so I'm not allowed to work anyways. I'm just at home with some time on my hands.
Okay. With a home occupation permit specifically to the garage area, then couldn't they apply for a commercial insurance on just the garage portion if that's where the function is happening at?
I don't know what a home occupation permit would be. Mr. Lee?
Mayor, members of the council, let's back up just a little bit. There's a very good graphic in front of you. The issue, as Kyle Sabota talked with her this afternoon, is that staff cannot approve a minor subdivision of this sort administratively. The property is obviously in the old Shakopee residential zone, R1C, and it provides for a minimum lot width of 50 feet and a minimum lot depth of 100 feet. As you can see, the second lot would not meet that standard. And under Chapter 12, city staff can't approve a minor subdivision administratively when it doesn't meet the zoning code standards. So there's that issue first.
Yeah, my request is for a variation.
Could you let Mr. Leek finish for
I'm
us?
sorry.
Thank you.
But you asked a question about the operation, and it's a little bit difficult to answer because I understand working with a variety of materials on a hobby basis and sometimes expanding that into a business. It would be possible to get a home occupation. The larger concern that I know that Mr. Sabota shared with her, not because it's a staff concern, but should be for her, is the expense of converting that garage to a livable structure under the building code, extending sewer and water to it and so on. It's going to be a fairly costly enterprise to get insurance. I can't speak to the insurance underwriter specifically. I certainly have encountered a variety of underwriters in the past. Some are more amenable than others, and I'm not sure who her underwriter is. So I wouldn't have any comment about that specifically.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Leek. Councilor Lehman, did that help your?
Does.
Okay. Councilor Clay.
Your hobby garage there, does that have to have sewer and water to it?
It doesn't have to, but I've already picked up permits, and I'm going to do all the research and the money amounts and figure out where I'm at with stuff and what steps to take first.
I guess I'm thinking that there's probably no way you're gonna be able to get a,
I'd like to homestead it.
well, yeah, you can't homestead it without sewer and water.
You can?
If you split this into two lots, you have one lot that has your house on it. The second lot would be a non-buildable.
I mean, the only water I use is a bucket of water.
So you really
I
don't
wouldn't
need.
need running water.
Yeah, and to get a homestead classification on it, you don't need to have sewer and water to it. It doesn't need to be fixed up to livable standards. An abutting lot like this, you can extend homestead from, that you have on your house to that abutting lot that you own and use as part of your residence. You could have a garden on it or a shed on it or something. So you wouldn't lose homestead on that part of it. So I would look at skipping the sewer and water expense and just subdividing the lot for insurance purposes. I guess I would first check with some more underwriters and see if you
It's
can't find
mostly
one.
for insurance purposes.
Yeah, I'd keep checking insurance people, because there's gotta be somebody, I think, that would.
Because the one that I'm using, he already does like all the insurance companies.
Mr. Leek.
Members of the council, I do want to share that in a conversation Mr. Sabota had with someone at the county and also with Ms. Barta at the counter, I think we had a different indication of what the motivation is here than I understand from her comments tonight. Mr. Sabota was under the clear impression the intent was to occupy the garage as a residence. And I'm hearing kind of both sides of that in the presentation this evening. And I think that's important to know. If it were to be occupied, you might not have to immediately do sewer and water. I would suggest that you would want to.
Yeah.
But even under our code, remember, if you've got sewer and water available to you, it needs to be connected. So there is that issue. And I'm not sure if it's because there's confusion on her part about precisely what she's wanting to do, and maybe that requires some clarification.
Mr. McNeil?
Mr. Mayor, what I was going to suggest is that if we could meet with Ms. Barta sometime before the next meeting and clarify exactly what it is that she's looking for and spell out those options. I mean, for you to act on it tonight, this isn't on the agenda and it would be
Right.
premature.
What were your time constraints for things, just to get it done, or?
I would prefer to maybe get it homesteaded by November 4th.
That goes,
Is
yeah,
that impossible?
correct. We'll need Councilor Lehman?
It's all one lot today, correct?
Yeah,
And you live in the house today?
yeah.
So the whole lot is already homesteaded, I would assume. So, I guess the question I have for staff when they're doing their research for us would be what kind of precedence does this set? Because I think we would be opening the door to being able to allow a lot of properties in Old Shakopee to start dividing. And I'm not sure, kudos to trying to start a business or a hobby or whatever it is you're trying to do, but I'm not sure in the middle of a neighborhood is the right location for it, for what intensive purposes you're looking at using. If that's the route you go, you might be better off in a commercial area, maybe leasing a space or something. But if you want to use it just for like a homestead purpose, maybe a second little home on your lot or something, well, that's possibly a different story.
Councilor Whiting?
One quick comment or question. I'm not sure the construction of this, but if that's garage spaces on a floating slab without footings, I would question whether that could be even used with sewer and water. I don't know.
Right.
That's a question for another time.
So if you would like to pursue this, you'll need to
Well,
go.
I have 3 big reasons for the request.
Okay.
The glass studio
Okay.
thing is the long-term goal of why I'm gonna stay here. But, in my foreclosure paperwork, it says that I can homestead a portion of the property because it's my home. And the only reason why I'm going through foreclosure is because I suffered a severe brain injury and lost my job. But I didn't want to come in here and be like, feel sorry for me and fix my problems.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm very sorry to hear that. But
But so
unfortunately,
the goal was
yeah.
to, if I could homestead that side, then maybe my disability and social security would kick in before anyone bought the other side. And then you know what I mean? Because it kind of decreases the appeal,
right. And unfortunately, we can't
do that.
make any decisions like that without fully vetting the request, and that hasn't been done yet. And so I don't think that we would be doing as much as I'm sure we would all love to help you. I don't think that we can make those kinds of decisions without having it fully formed. And I'm sorry to say that. Does anyone up here disagree or think we can go a different direction? So I'm very sorry to say that, but there's nothing we can do to help you out with that specifically and subdividing this tonight without having it go through a process, so we make sure that we're not screwing it up for the long term. So I'm sorry we can't help you out more than that. But if there's anything we can do,
I think if we
Would-
can have Ms. Barta meet with staff, and we'll go through what her options are and fully find out what it is that she's looking to do, and certainly we'll advise you what we find.
perfect. Is that, I know that's not exactly what you want, but is that acceptable and we can go forward with that and we'll help you out any way we can?
Well, I filled out all the forms, but he told me not to pay for them if you guys absolutely would not go for the variance.
Got it. Mr. Lee?
Mayor, members of the council, back to my original comments. As I said, we could accept an application for a minor subdivision, put it out for review, but under Chapter 12, staff would not be able to approve it, so it would have to come to you.
Got it.
So I think what Mr. Sabota was trying to say was, come to the council, find out if they have an appetite for potentially doing that. And I think Ms. Barta also expressed a concern about the cost of doing it and wanted to get the council's read on whether or not they would be flexible on the fees for doing it.
Got it. And unfortunately, we don't know enough about exactly how the process goes to make any decisions
You
on
can-
that right now.
You can put me down as I'm opposed to it.
Okay. Councilor Clay?
I would encourage staff to figure out if there's a way to do this split. And also, in the process, making it clear that it's, even though it's now a separate parcel, it's not a buildable lot. Because it's too small and it wouldn't meet setback requirements and a number of reasons, but if we could simply split it as a non-buildable lot.
Councilor Clay, members of the council, the city attorney may want to weigh in. I don't know how we would reasonably approve or have you approve a minor subdivision for the purposes that Ms. Barta is looking for them and declare it to be a non-buildable lot. But perhaps the city attorney has some comment about that as well.
We'll need
Matt?
to get into this.
Yeah, I think it does need to go to staff. I can work with staff.
Thank
There
you.
are issues, there's a lot of issues here that I don't think we're gonna be able to work through tonight.
Right.
But I can certainly cooperate and work with staff and see what we can do.
Thank you, and thank you for coming. We'll try and get a way that we can help and work through the process. So if you want to stick around and
I'll get her phone number.
yeah, and we can get contact information, make sure to get in touch with you. If you want to stay tonight, we can talk tonight, or we can make time later on this week to get it figured out and see if there's anything we can do. So thank you for being here.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything to talk about under the recognition of involved citizens? All right, we're going to move on to item number 6, public hearings. I need entertain a motion to open public hearing for assessment hearing on delinquent refuse bills. Councilor Lehman,
Motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
second by Councilor Whiting. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Mr. Loney.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, member of the audience. This is an assessment hearing for delinquent refuse bills from our garbage hauler, current garbage hauler, Dick Sanitation. And we've done this for a number of years. Council will be asked to pass or adopt Resolution 7369, which adopts the assessments on property owners for taxes payable in 2014 for unpaid refuge and recycling services from Dick Sanitation. We've done this for a number of years, since 2000, in which we charge people that don't pay their bills. We have an assessment hearing to collect those, or actually to assess those costs and put it on their property taxes. Reason we do this is to eliminate the, we don't stop service to these residents and businesses that are on this service. We just, which could lead to higher incidents of illegal dumping. We have started this process about a month ago. We had a list initially of over, I think, 400 properties. We're down to, there's an item on your table. The last list, we went till 5 o'clock tonight. People could pay. We're down to 175 accounts in the amount of $40,864.08. That's your list that you would be adopting with Resolution 7369. With that, I would take any questions you may have. Also, a representative of Dick Sanitation are here to answer any questions that they have.
Any questions for council? Councilor Lehman.
Can you explain the $45 and $30 fees, what they're used for and why they're priced at that?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of costs that go involved to keeping the accounts and sending letters out, and plus our assessing costs. Our $45 is our cost, basically administrative costs for my secretary and a little bit of time for myself and the finance department to cover our costs of the city to administratively do the assessments and sending out the letters and the notices. That also, the $30 is also for Dick's to recoup their administrative cost in dealing with unpaid refuge bills. So we give people a lot of opportunity to pay before this night tonight.
Any other questions? Anyone in the audience like to address this issue? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Councilor Whiting, do
Motion to close the public hearing.
we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Heitzman. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Now entertain a motion for resolution number 7369. Councilor Whiting.
Offer Resolution 7369, a resolution adopting assessments for delinquent refuse bills and move its adoption.
Do we have a second? Second by Councilor Lehman.
I'll second it to speak to it.
And discussion? Yeah.
Mayor, I guess the only thing I would say is that regardless of whether you like this policy or not, it is the policy that we have. And there is some logic behind it. Agree or disagree. And since it is the policy that we have, I mean, we have to make it work. That's basically what it comes down to. Love to have an open system where people can pick their own supplier. Unfortunately, we did do that, and some folks opted to use their neighbors instead without paying their neighbor for it. And that leads to other problems of dumping and so on and so forth. So this is the best compromise that we found, and it's what we have.
Very good. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Item number 6B, request from Opus Development Company LLC to vacate public drainage and utility easements. Entertain a motion to open a public hearing. Council Whiting,
I move to open a public hearing.
you have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Heitzman. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Mr. Leak.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Just to provide some context for those who may be watching, the property is part of that development that is adjacent to the former ADC building, now under renovation and construction for Emerson to occupy it. And for reference, this is 101 Valley Park Drive. And as you'll recall, you approved a plat that created the lot for that building that Emerson is going to occupy. Valley Park Business Center, first edition. We also have the proposed plat of the outlot that was created, Outlot 1, which is Valley Park Business Center, second edition. With the first edition, there were certain easements that were created, and they are depicted on the graphic that's part of your packet. What's occurring here this evening is with the second edition, the easements that are actually going to be required are being created, and so you're asked to vacate the easements that were created with the first edition. The city will end up with the easements that it needs for drainage and utility purposes. This has been in front of the Planning Commission, and they did recommend approval to you unanimously. Tony Phelps from Opus is here, should you have any questions for him. Otherwise, if you have questions for me, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, sir. Questions? Councilor Lehman.
We originally took that easement for what purpose, and now we find ourselves not needing it? Left over?
We actually are taking similar easements, but the configuration has changed somewhat with the second edition. And I believe it's largely for drainage ponding purposes on that parcel. Is that correct? Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Nope. All right, seeing none, public hearing. Anyone in the audience like to comment on this subject? All right, seeing no one from the audience, I entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Councilor Lehman.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second by Councilor Clay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Entertain a motion for resolution number 7371. Councilor Clay.
Mayor, I'll offer resolution number 7371, resolution approving a vacation of certain public drainage and utility easements in Valley Park Business Center, first edition.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Whiting. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Item number 7, business removed from consent agenda. There were none this evening. Item number 8, recess for Economic Development Authority meeting. Entertain a motion to recess for Economic Development. Councilor Lehman,
Motion to recess for economic development meeting?
do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Clay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. President Whiting.
Good evening. We'll call the October 15th, 2013 meeting of the Economic Development Authority to order. Ms. Weckman, please take note of the roll.
Yes, Mr. President.
First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Mr. Clay,
Mr. President, I'll move approval of the agenda.
is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Heitzman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is consent business. Mr. Lehman,
Move to consent to business?
motion on the floor, seconded by Mr. Clay.
Minutes and
Discussion?
bills? Minutes and bills.
Minutes and bills. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have no other business this evening. Is that true?
That's correct.
Okay, so next item is Mr. Lehman.
Motion to adjourn to November 6th.
We have a motion on the floor,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Heitzman. All those in favor?
Aye.
We stand adjourned.
All right, thank you very much. We reconvene the Shakopee City Council meeting and move on to item number 10C1, approval of Jennifer Lane extension concept associated with 1732 project. Mr. Loney.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Most of my presentation with maps on the board here. This is something I did mention during some of our budget discussions that we would be having. We've had some initial conversation and discussion on extending Jennifer Lane. This map here, or this drawing here, is just the county and their transportation improvement program. The next phase of County Road 17, that would be improved essentially just south of 78 to the interchange on County Road 42 and 17. The county also, while they're doing that project, if you remember back, and I apologize, this map would be north. This might make more sense.
Upside right.
And this is 169 in County Road 17 right here. And what the corridor study did look at is how to remove accesses and provide supporting road networks for more efficient operation of a principal arterial. If the council, the previous council made an action to make County Road 17 a principal arterial, we have 17 will go all the way down through Scott County, all the way down to Trunk Highway 19. So essentially we'll connect up with 13 down there at the 13 and 282 intersection right now. So there will be a lot more traffic in this area, and there is out of the study, the corridor study, we want to remove accesses or provide a more supporting road network so people can move, not necessarily on County Road 17. In this particular case, what we're looking at here, it does show an extension we call Jennifer Lane, making a connection to Wood Duck Trail, Lakefield Circle, which are long cul-de-sacs. They only have one way in and out right now, and then maybe a connection over to Fairhaven Drive. So we have met as county staff and with county staff, and we've had some meetings with property owners. The county took the next step, and they provided a concept on how how Jennifer Lane could be extended and what could happen to the parcels south of what's known as Valley Creek Crossing Second Edition. With that, we combined the parcel that you see here in yellow. There's one here that's shaded in brown. This is a parcel here that is a little different because it's a flag lot, but it wants to remain, this parcel, I can tell you right now, it does want to remain undeveloped for many years. But some of the parcels are interested. If they do extend Jennifer Lane, the meetings we've had, it makes the most sense. The county can use some of their federal funds that they've attained on County Road 17 to apply to remove accesses, which could be used to construct Jennifer Lane and the storm sewer system there. If we did do that, the property owners that we've met with have said it makes sense to put sewer and water in there versus building a road that would ultimately be dug up. We've had interest from this parcel here, owned by Mr. Fritz Minden. He has a preliminary plat from 1987 with the Stonebrook development and for septic and well development. He has also been waiting to see what happens here because he might then, if there were sewer and water brought down, would develop into sewer and water lots. So this is kind of the basic information on why we developed this concept. Again, the objective from the county is to get rid of accesses off of 17. Our objective here would be providing a better road system. And these circles are here, are current access points on county roads. Lakefield Circle and Wood Duck Trail, the only way they can get in and out is to this point on Wood Duck and 17. And if you've ever been out there on a 5 o'clock rush hour trying to make a left turn, today is very, very difficult. And as traffic increases, it'll be extremely more difficult. when we do build a 4-lane roadway with a separate left turn lane, it'll be a safer condition than it is today, but you still will have difficulty getting out. By providing, and I would draw on this drawing here, Jennifer Lane is built to right about here. And the idea would be to extend Jennifer Lane to connect up to this point of Wood Duck Trail and Lakeville Circle. Fritz Minden, if he develops, would then connect this roadway, Fairhaven Drive, into that roadway. So now, people in this area would have a way to get over to 79, up to 78, or 17. So the traffic would be dispersed. People could take a different route out of there. We'd also have better emergency vehicle access for those residents. So that would be our, I guess, from my recommendation and from the city viewpoint, that would be the reason that we'd want to perhaps assist in making this concept work. The idea behind this would be that the city would front the assessment costs mainly for sanitary sewer, water main, and some local street costs, which we need to talk to the county more about what that cost really is. But the estimated cost right now is the front is about $440,000. That's our best estimate today. And staff would then, if we want to go ahead and defer these assessments, we would, come up with what we think is a reasonable amount of time, some deferment. What is the right interest rate? Is there some advantage for us to do this? I guess what we're here tonight from the council is to hear what is your sense on doing such a proposal? Do you want to move forward on such a proposal, or do you think this idea is basically something we shouldn't do? So that's the situation, and the reason it's being brought today is because the project, the next phase of 17, will be starting in 2015. It takes a year to design 2014, and if you look at the calendar, we're almost in 2014. We would have several more meetings with the property owners. Many of them are here tonight. If you wish to hear from them and what their thoughts are, you can do that. And what the thought process, and I've talked to Mr. Thompson, we've done this in some other projects, is basically have assessment agreements with each parcel as we move forward, if we move forward with deferred assessments. So with that, that's what I would want you to consider. You want to move forward with the concept of extending Jennifer Lane and deferring assessments to the adjoining parcels. So
All right.
take any questions you might have.
Councilor Lehman.
Bruce, is there plans to keep Wood Duck and Marshall Road open even with this improvement, and in the future put a light there?
My understanding, it will remain open on the next phase of the project. I don't believe there's any plans for a light. Not right now, and it probably would have to meet warrants.
Okay. And then I would imagine 78 and 79 intersection at some point when traffic warrants would put a light there possibly.
Well, 78 and 79, it's a four-way stop right now.
Right.
Yeah, eventually, especially when we're looking at a new high school, potentially. That's where the second high school would go. So I think you would see a lot more traffic.
And then
And 78 is also a principal arterial.
I just have two follow-up questions, Mayor. The circle that you have on 78 by Marshall Road, it's really hard to tell the distance set back from that intersection, but there's a lot of stacking currently already right there. So is there enough distance on 78 from Marshall for that extra traffic to stack there? Or right there, yep.
Yep. I think obviously during peak hours, it probably gets a little more congested. It comes back. There is, and I can't remember, is there a double left? There is a double left turn on 78 to 17. The vast majority of traffic would
Would be
probably want to make a
residents.
right turn here, and right turns are much safer than left turns. If we had this other road connection, if somebody wanted to make, if this is a problem, you have the ability to do this and out. So that's that's the reason for dispersing the traffic. Yes, you might have to wait a while, wait the traffic clears, the congestion clears, and then you could make a left turn here. But there is plenty of, as many lanes as we're getting in that intersection, double lefts on 78.
Are we looking to purchase this property that we need for this road from the property owners?
I think the concept that has been mentioned to the property owners, if we do this, the county builds a road, we front the assessment, that they would dedicate the right-of-way.
Okay,
That's been the basic
okay.
concept. Nothing's been in writing.
Last
though.
question, Steve. Is there any households that would have to be condemned and kicked out of their houses?
No. The houses aren't showing up on here, but this roadway would not take out any homes. And there would actually be some driveway relocations for the properties that are there today, so that the accesses could come off of 17. There would be driveways provided in here. The reason this concept is like it is, it's much more advantageous for some developer to put all these parcels together to come up with a better development. So we looked at that to show everybody how your land can subdivide in the future and the value increase. The county, and Mitch here can probably talk better to it, they've actually done appraisals to see the actual increase of land value by doing what we're doing. There would be some savings for the roadway and the storm sewer being picked up by federal funds. That would be a development cost. There would be, we would be able to help the property owners by fronting, or, fronting the cost, but deferring it, which doesn't mean it's forgiven. It just means it's deferred and the interest is on it and it accrues. So they have to be aware of that it does build up in cost. But that's the basic premise, that they would not really have much cost up front. They wouldn't have any cost, other than dedicating the right-of-way.
Councilor Whiting.
Now, you defer that cost until it was developed, or defer it to the properties that are already on this, in the red lines, I take it?
Well, I think we've had some internal discussions. Julie and I have had some discussions. We need to talk about, if you want to give us a sense on that, you can do it that way, or do we want to have some kind of sunset clause of 20 years or something of that nature? We can talk to Mr. Thompson, and that's some of the discussions we would have with the property owners. If council wants to give us some direction on that tonight, that would be fine. But these assessment agreements would be brought back to you for approval in the future.
Councilor Whiting.
Is there any consensus of this being developed, or it's just kind of a concept that we're putting out there? The property owners that own it now interested in developing it?
I know there's some, like Mr. Minden, he's indicated that. Some of the other property owners don't know what the time frame, but they're closer to developing than others. I think they're here tonight and they can speak to it. And Mitch, you've had the meetings with the property owners.
Council members, the reason we tried to develop a concept was we wanted to make sure that we weren't creating a situation where we were making the land undevelopable, developable, or leaving parcels that were odd-shaped or couldn't get access to the road. So what we decided to do was to try to put an alignment and a concept together that would allow it to develop efficiently in the future. And then we felt the need to do some assessment or appraisals of the property, just to get an idea of the before, without the infrastructure in place, the value of the property, and then with infrastructure in place, the value of the property afterwards. When vacant land is developed, the cost of the infrastructure is typically taken into account when the sale price is established for that land. With the infrastructure already in place, obviously, it makes sense that the land is worth more. We wanted to have an increment, or at least a professional look at that, to see how much difference it really was.
Can you go through the process that you've taken with the homeowners so far, please?
I'm sure, Mayor, can you repeat that?
Could you go through the process you've taken with the homeowners so far? Have there been meetings or what's happened thus far?
I have a staff member here who has been part of all of those meetings, and I would like to have her come up and give the specifics of that, if you don't
Okay.
mind.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members. Lisa Schickadance with Scott County. We have since April, I think, was our first meeting with the property owners, and then we've had 2 other meetings since April. There was a gap kind of during the summer as we were working on the appraisal process and kind of going through that. But, you know, initial meetings kind of finding out if they are interested in, you know, potentially, you know, development in the near future, selling their properties in that kind of sense. We have gotten that sense from a few of the property owners. So we did kind of move forward and try to develop a preferred concept, and that's what was shown here up on the screen, that we kind of worked with the property owners on several different concepts, and that's the one that they kind of was the preferred option. You know, so we've just been meeting with them over the months, kind of going through the process here. And this is the next step.
And how many property owners?
7, I believe.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions from council? All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate you being here. Now I'd like to, is there any, I know there are quite a few homeowners here. Anyone who would like to talk about the concept? Oh, I know you want to,
Don't
back in the
rush,
back
yeah.
row.
Mayor, members of City Council, thank you for letting me come up and talk.
Could you name, address? There's also up there a sorry, I forgot to
Sign
sign in.
in.
Yeah, you got to
Okay.
sign in.
Do I have to do that while I talk?
We'll give you a
Before
moment.
you go, you need to do it.
Before I go, okay.
Yes.
Michael Bowick, I'm the owner of 2400 Jennifer Lane, used to be 2378 Marshall. That address has changed in the efforts with the county to try and take some of the driveways off of Marshall Road. I'm the property at the top that does not want to move. So, a couple of the questions that I would have you guys think about as you go forward with this is the interest being deferred. If that property is not developed in a certain amount of time, that accrued interest is going to heavily weigh on the property's value, thereby decreasing the property's value. In fact, at this point, my property value increases $20,000 with having sewer and water through it. The assessment to my rough calculations is $50,000 to have sewer and water. So at this point, I'm $30,000 in the hole with no interest already put on. So it makes no sense for me to even consider this, just from a pure number standpoint. As we've gone through this as with property owners, I won't speak for anybody but myself, I completely understand that this is going to be developed at some point, but given Shakopee's tradition and having developers come in and do this as opposed to the county do this, it's a bit of a stretch for us as well, or for me as well. You know, what, where, how am I going to do this? I have been a resident of Shakopee now for almost 4 years. We bought this property before anything was developed to our north, with the intention of staying there forever. We have 7 children. We have 4 of which are special needs from the county that we are foster parents for and have adopted them now. Obviously, our world has changed a lot, and being thrown into this is another big change. So, you know, as you guys go forward, I encourage you to think about the financial responsibility that you're placing on people. If we don't have a developer come in and buy our properties in a certain amount of time, that interest is not going to just sit there. It's going to be accruing, and what impact is that going to have on our future lives and how we're going to sell and what we're going to have to do. So, thank you.
Councilor Lehman.
Can you point out on this map where you're located at?
Sure. Right here.
Okay. That whole area right there is developed?
Yeah, right up above me
Yep.
is Valley Creek Crossing Second Edition.
Okay. So we've got,
So if you look at the aerial maps still on Google, you can see that there are open fields and trees and all that stuff, of which there are now 70 plots and 50-some houses developed.
And Mayor, I think you actually raised another point that we didn't realize is if we put sewer and water in, under our own policy, these areas only have a certain timeline to hook up. And how do we do that for vacant parcels?
Well, that's part of the assessment agreement that we can put together, because we've done this on Valley View Road parcels, that they didn't have to hook up until either they plat or their septic system fails.
Okay,
So we can address that through the assessment agreement.
so how do we address individual existing lots compared to undeveloped parcel developments?
Again, that's through the assessment agreement process. As far as, if you're talking about sewer and water connection,
Yep.
that's how you would do that. You would have an agreement, so it says city code says this, but city council can supersede that with an agreement.
I think what I'm getting at is that a developer that owns a larger parcel that's not developed yet is gonna have theirs deferred until they develop the whole area, and then that cost gets defrayed into all the various lots that they've designed with their development. The individual property owner is gonna have the assessment tagged on them right away, whether they wanna hook up or not, and they're gonna be required to hook up within 3 years, whether they want to or not. And that cost is gonna start incurring right away, as soon as they hook up. Or matter of fact, as soon as it's done, the assessment will be against the property.
Well, Councilor Lehman, members of the council, there would be separate assessments on each of these parcels. Now, some of these parcels, they're by the same owner. There's one parcel here, Mr. Bowick is here, parcel here, these two parcels go together, these two parcels actually go together, same ownership, and then Fritz Minden. There would be assessments going against these parcels. Each parcel would have an assessment agreement, the way I foresee this. In that agreement would be the conditions or outlining the various factors that would occur when they would have to hook up the sewer or water. For instance, if they do subdivide, obviously the assessment becomes active, gets activated. So those are things that would happen. Some of the parcels and owners are more interested in developing sooner than Mr. Bowick, and so those would have, each one of them would have their own timetable, but when that assessment kicks in, we have to address that through the assessment agreement.
Do we have a ballpark of the individual lot assessment that we would be looking at?
We have the bigger parcel, the 10-acre parcels, around 90,000. And the smaller parcels here around 45 to 50,000. That's going by the acre. So that's a rough assessment calculation. So.
I only have one more question.
Keep going. You're on a
The,
roll.
The septic system on the currently occupied lots are roughly what age?
Say that again?
The septic systems on the lots up here that are, what's the age roughly?
I don't know that information. I know Scott County might have looked at that with their appraisal. I don't know the age of those.
I
I don't know, you know what your age is?
Yes, mine was all redone 7 years ago, to my recollections with all of my purchasing. So it's very new.
Right.
And it was actually developed, if you remember the Mabsco house, the house that had all the trouble, that is my house. So that was actually the sewer and septic, excuse me, the septic system and water system is made for a large group of people. Granted, 7 children and 2 adults is not a small group of people, but it was made for much more. The other thing I would encourage council to consider as these plats are done by the county and by the company that they asked to draw these are not necessarily done by an individual developer, and they may not reflect how they would want the roads to go through and where the houses should go and so on and so forth, to be as advantageous to them as they could.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Lehman.
I would point out that on the flip side of that comment is there is an advantage to everybody if we can utilize the various different funding pools on Marshall Road along with this project, which if we don't, then we're all gonna pick up the difference. So it's gonna get us one way or the other.
Right.
So, but I don't see, if I had a brand new system like yours, I surely wouldn't want to replace it at your expense so soon. Not for at least 20 years of its expected lifetime use out of it.
I can't hear you.
So that's going to be an issue.
No one can hear you, Matt. I'm getting.
It's okay. Most people don't listen when they do hear me, so that's okay. If they didn't,
Sorry.
what I basically said was your system is new enough to where if it was my house, I wouldn't want to go onto the sewer system on the city when I have a brand new system that I paid for that I'm expecting to get 20, 25 years of life out of. So you basically made an investment in something that you can't get your return on.
That is
That's
correct.
not fair to you. So
Right.
we're going to have to work through that issue and find out if there's other ones like that within this plan.
Councilor Whiting.
I don't know if this should be to the county or Bruce, but I think if we look at that assessment process and defer it to, put that sunset date out there, 20 years, or until it is developed, I think that would give Mr. Bowick a little more time, 20 years to be 27 years on his septic system, or maybe in the future he'd be ready to develop that land, and then it'd be a lot easier for him to pay that assessment. Is that something is that how I heard you right?
Yeah,
or-
I was just gonna suggest, there's other people here, we might wanna hear from
Yeah, I was
others.
just going to ask that
Oh.
as well. Anyone else in the audience like to speak? I know you could hear me that time. Now's the time. Come on up and tell us what you're thinking. Don't be
They're not
shy.
at the meetings we've had, I know.
You got to tell us what we're missing.
There we go. Brave soul.
My name's Howard Dearborn, 2460 Marshall Road. I live here. There's a Plan B that they haven't showed you. I was wondering if you could show them where the frontage road would be along Marshall Road. I don't know if you guys still have a map.
That's this one, has it, isn't it? Right here.
Actually, on your previous picture,
All right, you.
shows what it could be.
I don't know if that was the frontage road. That we're talking about here. I mean, this actually, there was another road here kind of coming along here.
Could you zoom in for us there, Bruce?
Yeah. This was still the extension of Jennifer Lane. And then there was another road potentially coming along here.
All right, so Howard, why would anyone do that?
I mean, yeah, it would be something I think the city would not be interested in.
Well, back in, I think it was December.
I need you talking in the mic for me.
I think it was back in December when we all got their first maps, but there was, if nobody agreed with the Jennifer Lane, which I think none of us do, the other option was putting a temporary frontage road from Wood Duck Trail coming down Marshall Road, right to Myers and a cul-de-sac there. It'll be just temporary until a developer is willing to purchase our property, and then Jennifer Lane could be put in at that time. But they don't have the map. I wish I had it with me. I don't have it. But
Okay.
I can bring it or whatever, drop it off.
Well, so my question on that is that doing that doesn't save $800,000 for everybody, and so that's my question: does it make sense
Well-
to invest in that now, and what does that do to your life and to your property for putting that road through the back wherever you're at?
It keeps from my property be split in half. I work out of my home. I do construction and boat service. I don't know what I can do on the back half. There's probably gonna be restrictions, well, I won't be able to do anything across the road. I mean, they already said that with the developer, they might not like the way that road is positioned. I mean, Shakopee's growing. I don't think there should be any rush in this road that needs to be put in there. Obviously, our land is gonna be sold. They're already knocking on our door. It's just a matter of when. I just don't think this road needs to be pushed through by the Scott County. I think we can wait by a developer and have them do it.
Okay. Any questions? For Howard, I didn't get your last name, Howard. Thank you, Howard. Mr. Rasmussen.
Mayor, if I could respond. I think the county's position, the corridor study did show some concepts of trying to make short connections of frontage roads, and that really was put in place not knowing if or when the Jennifer Lane, or even if it was eligible for federal funding. That was, all those concepts were put together during the study. The county really looks at this as an opportunity to get 80% of this road constructed with federal money. And I think it's been said here that the cost of that road will get paid for in one way, shape, or form. And the county isn't here to push the Jennifer Lane extension. We think it's a good idea. We think it's an opportunity to utilize outside funding to do it. If the city council, at the request of the property owners, or in your decision process, you decide that it's not something you want to pursue, I think we'll probably end up with the direct access points onto 17. And they'll stay there and they'll deal with the traffic volume increases until the parcels develop. And then once there is a development, then the requirement will be that those accesses go away and they connect up to whatever development streets will serve those properties. And the county's fine with that. We're fine. We just see this as an opportunity to get 80% of the infrastructure put in place without having that cost be taken out of the value of the land when it's purchased by a developer.
All right. Anyone else out there? So I'm assuming everyone feels exactly the same sentiment as Howard does.
Council members, Mayor. My name's Bob Court. I live on 2540 Marshall Road, which is the furthest parcel to the south. My biggest concern is if they put this road in, when the person comes in to grade this for development, how are they gonna possibly do anything over that road? Because them hills out there have got to be knocked down in order to build on it. And they just did that same thing north of us on that development that's going on right now. Well, how would they ever grade over a highway and a sewer system that's already there? How would they ever level the land to build? And that's the biggest problem I got, is they want to take 2 acres of my property for the road, which I am willing to sell out and go if it will do what it has to do. But the biggest problem I got is I think they're going to destroy the value of the property by throwing a road in there improperly to whoever develops it. But it seems like the developer should be involved in this now, not after the road is put in and then he can't even cross the road to do any grading or anything. And there's a massive amount of work that's got to be done in there to grade and level. And again, if they don't, they're going to have to haul in tons and tons of fill just to change things, because they're not going to be able to grade through where the road is. What would they do there? You know, that's the big problem I got, is that they got the cart in front of the horse here. And a developer should be involved in this, and that's when it should happen, because right now it's working into another problem, is what it's doing. And if they don't systemize that thing and do it right, then it's going to destroy the value of the whole thing. And as a property owner, that's the last thing I want to happen.
Exactly.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Anyone else? All right. Councilor Clay.
Couple questions for Mitch. I assume you've got some preliminary engineering done on this road extension?
Mayor and Councilor, we do have some very preliminary engineering. We haven't set grade lines yet or anything like that. Mostly just concept work. We didn't want to do a lot of investment here until we had an indication if we were moving forward or not.
And you had earlier mentioned that these estimated assessments, which will be deferred, but collecting interest, those assessments running from what, 40 or 50,000 to up to 200,000?
And I would defer that question to your engineer because the assessments are not a component of the county's purview or responsibilities.
But those estimates were done assuming that, what did you say, 80% of the project would be federally funded?
That is correct.
So these assessments would be significantly higher if they were done under our own nickel or a future developer's nickel.
Under my knowledge of assessments, which I did spend a little time as the Burnsville city engineer, so I feel like I know a little bit about assessments. That's a true statement.
Can you give me a ballpark as to how much federal money we're talking about here? Give or take a few million, you know.
With a really rough estimate, the federal contribution is in the $600,000 to $750,000 ballpark.
Thank you.
That's roadway and storm sewer. And obviously ponding that would have to go with that.
Thank you.
Council Lehman.
So the alternative is to wait until various parcels are developed and then require the developer at that time to put in the infrastructure based on a plan that we would like to see. We'd like to see a road connect from here to here. We'd like to put a sewer under that road. We'd pay the oversizing cost as normal policy.
That's correct. That's how we would normally do it.
Okay.
And that's, I just want to echo what Mitch was saying, that the reason we're here tonight is an opportunity, and that's why we want to present property owners. If we don't get property owner cooperation, well then, this is not going to go anywhere anyway. They're not going to sign an assessment agreement, so.
How do we hear from that?
That's something that we would be meeting with them afterward if the council was in favor of this, but more than likely from the people we've heard tonight, which doesn't sound like they were too much in favor of this, so.
So I can ask a question real quick. So process we're talking about here is if we, as council, like the concept and like utilizing federal money to do this, you will enter into negotiations with all the property owners. You have to get each property owner along here to sign an assessment agreement, and if and when that happens, then the project moves forward. Is that how this works, just so I understand?
Yeah, and I was under the impression from the conversation the county's had that many of the people were interested because they could see the value of a roadway getting paid for and their increased values of their property. If they're not, majority of them are just here tonight saying, no, they're not interested. I don't see where we can meet with them and find out if this is what they really want to do or not and bring it back to council, but that's just
Mr. Thompson?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I agree with Mr. Loney. I think what Bruce is looking for is the council okay with this concept if the property owners go along with it? I think that's,
Yeah,
that,
that's
and
exactly
so
what the memo
that
said.
before the city staff got involved in any more detailed discussion with the property owner, they wanted to be sure that you were okay with this if the property owners bought into this. So I think that's a direction.
Yeah.
Because right now, we're hearing from 3 property owners that don't appear to be favoring this, but you can still answer the question from your side of the table as do you favor it if they decide to do that. But if they don't think there's enough value in this for them, that's obviously their decision to make, because Bruce is right. An agreement requires their consent. If they're not gonna consent to agreement, we won't be able to come back to you with one, but at least Bruce will know that the council's okay with it if he does come back with an agreement. So we're looking for direction from the city council if you're okay with this concept.
Perfect.
And then they'll move from there.
Right.
Correct.
Councilor Clay?
In that context, I'm very much in favor of suggesting that you go ahead with getting more information for the property owners if in fact they, you know, have to approve it in the end in order for it to happen. And if, you know, doing this, if we were to approve the concept tonight, at least it gives them the option of looking at it again more closely and making a decision, as opposed to not having an option at all. I always think having options is generally a good thing, especially if you're talking about dollars in your pocket.
Could you put that in the form of motion?
Sure, maybe.
It's at the bottom.
I would move to make a motion approving the concept of extending Jennifer Lane from the Valley Creek Crossing second addition to Wood Duck Trail with Scott County, and to consider deferring assessments to benefiting properties contingent upon their approval of an assessment agreement.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Whiting. Discussion, Councilor Lehman.
Well, I'm probably gonna vote against it for a couple of reasons. I would just as soon staff maybe go back and have a couple more meetings with these folks before we even consider this concept, because I think some valid points were raised. Part of me is pulling me with this thought of, we know that federal government's broke, and yet we're gonna spend their money on what should be an expense paid for by new development. Yeah, we're gonna carry the cost, but ultimately the feds are gonna pay for a part of this, and it's really not their obligation to do that. That's probably what got them so broke to begin with. But I think the gentleman's correct. We're putting the horse in front of the cart. We need to have these conversations more to find out the issue with the gentleman that's got the new septic system. How are we going to deal with it? Are we going to be able to deal with it? We need to have a lot of these conversations and things worked out prior to jumping into this. My last concern, Mayor, is that now we're telling the folks that, yeah, we're okay with this design. We're going to talk to them about trying to get them convinced that this is a great idea. What if they say no? Are we going to force them at that point? So I'm a little leery.
Councilor Heitzman.
I have to agree with Matt on that, and Mr. Court, as far as putting the cart before the horse. I think the land's more attractive the way it is right now to a developer coming in versus running sewer down the middle of it, and they're not going to be able to portion it off properly, and all the dirt that's going to have to be moved around. And if you do approve it, I would like to see, I can't agree with it, but the deferring the assessments should be a timeline on there. You know, as far as how far out they're going to defer those for the gentleman and that. But yeah, I can't follow with that. I would rather see a developer come in and pick up the dime on it.
Well, my thoughts on it are, A, it won't happen unless the homeowners are on board, so I am 100% confident in that. But secondly, if you ever drive back on Wood Duck Trail in Lakeview and try and get back out on Marshall, that's brutal. I mean, as everyone who lives back in there, and I've heard from a lot of folks who live back in there, it's not good turning a left out onto Marshall. And if we have the ability to use $750,000 of somebody else's money, then if the homeowners are on board with it, I have zero issue with doing that, because it makes it a lot safer for our residents getting in and out on Marshall Road, makes it a lot more easy for that to happen. And we know the general layout of where Jennifer Lane has to go. So whatever a developer says, it's going to go pretty much where this is at right now. That's the concept. That's where we're at. So I don't see a problem with that. Could it bring grading issues in the future and those types of things? Absolutely some, but I'm confident that our engineers can get through those issues. So I have no issue for those points, because it will dramatically improve the safety of all those families that live back in those homes back up against the course back there. So that's my thought. Councilor Whiting.
Last point, I made myself pretty clear on what I thought, but you brought up a good point. Those second accesses for emergency vehicles, if one is closed and things, for whatever reason, I think that's important. And like you mentioned, Jennifer Lane is going to connect up with those other ones eventually, and how it does that. The concept drawing, whether it be moved this way or that way a little bit, I think is pretty clear and good thought, well thought out, so that's all I have to say.
I love the
Yes, sir.
concept. I just don't like the devil in the details without the answers ahead of
Well,
time.
you can't get the answers until you get into the concept. I
Well-
mean, you're the one. I mean, if you're thinking that way, we're not even able to think about what's going to happen in the future with that line of thought. I mean, are they supposed to go and negotiate with every homeowner and then come back to us and say, hey, we hate that plan in the future?
Well,
I
how do
mean,
you-
we're approving their ability to do that now, not to get it all done, but to get started on it to get exactly what you want finished.
I would hope that during these conversations that they already had, that a lot of this would have been covered already. That's not, so it's kind of disappointing.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Passes 3-2 with Councilors Lehman and Heitzman in dissent. Thank you, everybody, for being here to discuss this with us tonight and talk about the concept plan. We're a long way from 100% things getting done, but at least the concept is there to continue those discussions. So thank you for being here for that. Item number 11, council member reports. We'll start on this side. Councilor Whiting.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tuesday, October 2nd, I attended a meeting with staff and Councilmember Lehman, members of the Derby Days Board, of which I'm a member. We discussed concerns and issues related to that event. Wednesday, October 10th, along with staff and many of council members, I attended the presentation on the Main Street program, which was well attended and equally well presented. Friday, the 11th, the general membership meeting at Scale had the Climb Theater present the programs in which they present to our school children through the Meth Task Force, teaching kids the dangers of drug use and other subjects using theatrical approach. I can imagine this technique much more valuable than a random teacher droning on in a lecture format about the subject, so I thought it was pretty interesting. After that meeting, the Scale Regional Training Facility Board met, and the main highlight of that is the RTF will be acquiring a fire truck from Excelsior Fire Department for training purposes, so people wouldn't have to bring their own fire truck to the Scale facility. That is actually going to be traded off in lieu of training time, so it's kind of a trade-off. Worked out pretty well. Monday the 14th, yesterday, school board met, and highlights were presentations and a recap of their Hall of Fame event and their anti-bullying event. One important and exciting note was the district was awarded a grant from the Indian Education Grant Foundation that will pay $150,000 over 2 years to establish curriculum for teaching the required Native American component of that curriculum. This grant should create exciting energy learning activities. The district Indian Education Coordinator is working with the SMSC to fulfill this education component. That's all I have.
Thank you. Councilor Lehman.
Met with the Main Street DL downtown at Turtle Social Center concerning 101. Also was at the Derby Days meeting with staff and Mr. Whiting. We also talked about the positives of Derby Days, the things that went very well, and what could be improved upon. And the next Derby Days meeting, I think, is Thursday, next week Thursday. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilor Clay.
Nothing tonight.
Councilor Heitzman.
October 10th, I attended the Main Street program, and then on Saturday, October 12th, I volunteered down at Pumpkins in the park, and they had roughly about 500 kids through there. It was a good time.
Nice.
I think Mr. McMill won the costume award.
And what were you, Mr.
Yeah,
McNeil?
you can't leave us hanging here. You get a picture.
Go ahead and get your.
Are the photos for closed session, or are they?
Okay,
All right. Thank you, Councilor Heitzman.
Put it on the big screen.
A couple things past couple of weeks. On the 2nd of October, Ms. DiMaggio and I presented to the St. Francis Board of Directors about all the different things that are going on in Shakopee, and had a great meeting with them, just talking about construction and developments and all those things. On the 4th, I went to the school district's Hall of Fame presentation. That was great. All the folks who have contributed so much of their lives to the Shakopee School District, was wonderful to see them recognized for their contributions to the city. I missed on the 3rd. I emceed the ribbon cutting and a discussion with the school district for their environmental learning center, and that was a really great event. A lot of folks there. And then on the 14th, had regional council mayors lunch yesterday, and we discussed a lot about how businesses in Shakopee and cities within the metro can better utilize state programs for exports throughout international exports, and how we can better do that, because that's one of the main growth areas they anticipate for the state is through exports, and how businesses in Shakopee can get access to different programs to help them make more money. So it was a very good meeting, and then we're here tonight. So that is all. Mr. Marino, you have photos to pass around.
That'll be
A different time.
later.
All right. Item number 12, other business. Anyone have, Council Lehman?
League of Minnesota Cities 2014 policy initiatives are out. Read it, same old, try not to swear, stuff. One of the concerns I have is, again, they're pushing for the state to change the eminent domain laws to allow for redevelopment, taking of properties by force. Totally disagree with that policy and that initiative. I'm going to tell them that. And there's a couple other items in their 2014 policy initiative that I'm completely in disagreement with. At one point, we talked as a body about having that available to the citizens to be able to view. And I don't know if we ever made that happen or not, or if we actually took that action or not. So I'd like to ask staff to look into that.
We can certainly post it on the website, a link to that.
It's kind of late now, but they only got until November 5th, I think it is, to comment.
It's 2 weeks,
Okay.
3 weeks.
Any other items for other business? One that I'd like to bring up, talked to staff a little bit about this week. I heard from multiple people, oddly enough, over the weekend about winter parking rules. And we had talked, since those are coming up again, we had talked briefly in the spring, I don't remember exactly how the conversation went, about moving toward snow emergencies instead of having the winter parking rules as we are right now. And I just want to get a feel from council if people want to discuss that, or if it's the way we've got right now is good enough and we're not going to move forward with it. Should we ask staff to look at those policies we have and see where they should go in the future?
Sure.
Councilor Heitzman.
I'd like to see staff look at it. Because like over a Christmas vacation and that, I got my 2 daughters home from school, and it's no parking up in the presidential section, and it's got to be an air traffic coordinator to try to figure out where you're going to park everybody. So yeah, I'd definitely like to see something looked at on that.
So like going towards snow emergencies and that kind of thing? Okay. Anyone else have comments?
Well, I look at anything, but I think we've beat this thing to death for 30 years in Shakopee.
You are probably absolutely correct. But I think that we should have snow emergency routes instead of blanket no parking.
We have
Snow emergency, declarations as opposed to routes. I said that incorrectly. I'm sorry.
Either, Mr. Mayor and council, either system that you have has some advantages and it has some disadvantages. If you look at Minneapolis and St. Paul, they both declare snow emergencies, and I don't know that anyone would say that that works smoothly every time, even though they go through it each time. I also understand the concerns about getting tickets when there's no snow that's there, but that's part of the training process. If you want us to bring this back to you to discuss at the next meeting, we're certainly prepared to do it. But just understand that it's a series of compromises either way, and whatever your preference is, you make the decision on that for us.
I would like to talk about it. Anybody else?
Curious to see how they would work a snow emergency system, but
Okay. Councilor Whiting?
I don't think, I think we have looked at it quite a bit, and
We've
I
never
think you
actually
get a little
talked
more
about this,
angry
though.
people when your car gets towed. So I
Yeah, but
could-
your car
and
gets
then-
towed for a
and then you get it
reason then,
towed,
because there's actually snow there, and, you're too stupid
and
to
you're holding
move
up
it.
the
I mean,
plows, and so I can see why it's come to the way it has, and so I would probably leave it the same.
okay. What can we bring it back
We're
for?
probably gonna end up there, I think, after we go through the whole exercise like we have 1,000 million
Yeah.
times in the last 50 years, but never hurts to do the exercise.
Okay, so I hear 3 people that want to discuss it.
Yes, please.
We'll bring it back.
Thank you.
I'm
Any other
al-
business?
I'm always happy to talk about snow plowing, garbage collection, sanitary sewers.
We throw
storm
sewer in
sewers.
there? Oh, Bruce's day is gonna be made. Oh, Bruce isn't in here anymore. All right. Any other business? All right. Seeing none. Item 13. Entertain a motion to go into closed session for labor negotiation strategy. Councilor Lehman.
The motion to go into closed session for labor negotiation strategy.
Second.
Second by Councilor Heitzman.
Mr. Mayor, just so we're clear on the record, that the motion is pursuant to Minnesota statutes 13D.03.
Thank you very much, sir. Any discussion on the item?
I'll accept that amendment to the motion.
There you go. Councilor Heitzman.
I'll second that.
All right. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes unanimously. We are going into closed session.